On March 26th, Karnataka Governor Thawarchand Gehlot returned the Greater Bengaluru Governance Bill to the government, seeking clarifications after it was passed by both houses of the state legislature. On March 10, 2025, Karnataka's assembly passed the Greater Bengaluru Governance Bill, aiming to reshape how Bengaluru is governed. The bill divided the Bruhat Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike into multiple smaller corporations, which would all be overseen by a newly created Greater Bengaluru Authority led by the Chief Minister. Tabling the report, Committee Chairperson and Shivajinagar Congress MLA Rizwan Arshad said the bill would benefit Bengaluru and improve governance in the city. After the Greater Bengaluru Governance Bill was referred to a Joint Select Committee in July 2024, the 13-member Joint Select Committee headed by Arshad was formed to review the bill. It had several provisions that allow legislatures more say in the decision-making process, and councillors still have veto powers over ward committee decisions. The terms of mayors and deputy mayors have been cut from 5 years to 2.5 years, while the original bill had proposed it to be fixed at 5 years. BJP and JDS had strongly opposed the move. The proposed legislation was described by Leader of Opposition R. Ashoka as a move to shatter the city built by Kempe Gowda. He argued that dividing BBMP into smaller corporations would create pockets of uneven growth. Civic society members and citizens have also expressed the concern that it violates the 74th Amendment of the Constitution, which gives more power to local bodies. To discuss the bill, we have with us V. Ravichandar, who is a Bengaluru-based civic evangelist. He was a member of the Greater Bengaluru Governance Bill, which had formed the draft initially. Ravi has been on innumerable committees, including the influential Bangalore Agenda Task Force.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. And it's an honor to have you firstly. So the first thing that
Thank you, Akshita. Thank you so much for inviting me to this session.
The first thing that we, of course, want to know is the proposal that you had submitted, you had been a member of, and now the one that has been passed by the Assembly. Are the core principles that you had worked on, are they mentioned in the final draft that has been accepted in the Assembly?
So, just by way of context, we were earlier something called the BBMP Restructuring Committee. That was during the period 2014 to 18. During that period, we met over 1,000 people. We met experts. We gave 10 reports, and we gave a draft bill in 2000 by the end of 2018. At that point of time, it did not progress beyond what we had done, the 10 reports and the draft bill then. Then back in 2023, in this government, the committee got rechristened as the Brand Bengaluru Committee. And where we were 3 members earlier, we now were 4 members. And the 4-member Brand Bengaluru Committee this time around primarily focused on getting a Greater Bengaluru Governance Bill. And that bill was submitted sometime in mid-2024 to the government. Let's call it the GBG Committee Bill. The government tabled it in the Assembly in July of 2024. And subsequently, they set up a subcommittee under Mr. Rizwan as the chairperson. The subcommittee met over the last many months. And recently, earlier in March, the Assembly passed the bill. And post the Assembly passing the bill went to the Legislative Council. The Legislative Council has also passed the bill, and currently it is awaiting Governor's assent. So there was actually the committee bill which we had given. There was an initial bill that was tabled in the Assembly, and then there is a revised bill which has got passed by both the houses and gone to the governor. Now, what we are going to compare is our committee bill vis-a-vis the revised bill that has gone to the governor, though there was an intermediate step. Just suffice to say, the intermediate initial bill that was tabled, unfortunately, I don't think was good enough. But fortunately, our democratic processes where a legislative subcommittee gets into the details, listens to other points of view, and a fresh bill evolves, has helped the process. And consequently, the revised bill that has been passed is a lot better than the initial bill that was tabled in July of 2024. Now, that said, your question really was, what are the key similarities
Yeah.
and key differences?
Yeah.
Now, let's first do the similarity. We had a three-tier structure of government. We are all aware of ward committees of which we live in a street which belongs to a particular ward. The ward currently belongs to BBMP as a corporation. So you have a ward at the lowest level of government. Then you have the corporation. And what we suggested was a third tier of layer, which was the Greater Bangalore Authority. We'll come back to it because there have been criticisms about the Greater Bangalore Authority. But conceptually, we had wards, corporation, and the Greater Bangalore Authority. The bill that has been passed retains this architecture of all the ward, corporation, and the Greater Bangalore Authority. To that extent, we are on the same page. If we look at the corporation and ward section of the bill that has been passed through the assembly is very, very similar to the existing BBMP 2020 bill. So there was a BBMP 2020 bill that was passed about 5 years ago. And in the Greater Bangalore Governance Bill, or let's call it the GBG bill, that bill is very, very close to the BBMP 2020 bill. There are one or two small changes. So the sections that we wrote in the corporation and ward in our bill was not accepted. And it is the prerogative of both the government and the legislature to decide what they want to do. So our corporation and ward committee sections were not accepted. And they chose to stay with the BBMP 2020 Act. Very briefly, before we go to the Greater Bangalore Authority, the differences between what we said in the corporation and ward level versus what's got accepted, there are 5 or 6 things that we pushed for, but were unsuccessful. But it's okay. I mean, even the BBMP 2020 Act is fine. But ours had a few reform measures. We suggested a mayor in council with a cabinet, just like the way you have a central cabinet, you have a state cabinet. We suggested a similar cabinet system.
CM has
in the corporation.
develops his ministry the same way. The CM is chosen and then they have a ministry. The same thing happens at the
Yeah, so there would be a mayor, there would be a deputy mayor, and maybe 8 to 10 cabinet members, each having a responsibility. We believed that that brings greater accountability. You know who is the individual involved in, let's say, lakes, or involved in revenue, or involved in roads. So you knew who was in charge. But the system that we are staying with now is similar to our historical system, which is standing committees. So you have standing committees and standing committee chairpersons. So they have chosen to stay with the conventional standing committee model instead of adopting the cabinet system. The second thing is we felt that MLAs really belong to the assembly. They could have a potential role in the Greater Bangalore Authority as elected reps in the city. But in the corporation, we did not have it. But the 2020 bill has the MLAs in the corporation, and that continues. So these were this thing. The big change which the bill has also accepted, we were in favor of multiple corporations. And the bill says that it could go up to 7 corporations. We had actually recommended 5, but the bill says up to 7. What will be the final number of corporations? We don't know till the bill is gazetted and the government decides how many corporations they want to have. So we were on the same ground on a multiple corporation setup. Coming now to the wards, we had an idea of doing proportional representation for ward committee, which means even if you lost a corporator election but got 20-25% share, you could get some of your nominees in the ward committee. We felt that it is more representative of people's choices But the system said, I don't think we are ready for proportional representation yet. It's really not there in anywhere in the country. So they said we would rather stay with the conventional ward committee kind of nomination. The only difference is earlier where it was nominated and filled with in a particular manner, now they have said that 7 out of the 11 seats will actually get filled by a random draw of lots of people interested in being in the ward committee, which I think is a better method than somebody nominating them as members that they believe should be in the ward committee. We had two other things which has not got accepted. One is our functions of the ward committee were a lot more empowering of the ward committee. Empowering means more powers to the ward committee. Our functions that we had set out was a lot more intensive than what is there in the 2020 bill. But they said at this stage, we'd like to stay with the 2020 bill, and one respects that. And the other thing is, we wanted to incentivize the ward committee by saying that 25% of the money, additional money that you collect by way of property tax from unassessed or underassessed properties, you can keep it for your own projects in the ward. We wanted to incentivize them and make them a partner in property tax collection. But that also the system felt it's a bit too early to do that. And whatever they have done by way of choice, I'd like to reiterate, it is their prerogative to stay with the 2020 bill as opposed to using our thing, because ours is only suggestive and one respects their right to choose. So I want to state that on record. It would have been nice if they had picked some of our features, but such is life. The next one is become the innovation in the whole report that we had given. The innovation was the Greater Bangalore Authority layer. The reason why we felt this layer is required is we have a dysfunctional system. We have, if I have to hazard a guess, the corporation is less than 30% of my life in Bangalore. Water and sewerage outside of corporation. Electricity outside of corporation. Transport outside of corporation. Traffic police outside of corporation. Some of the things that BDA does outside of corporation. So it is fair to say that if you want the city to work, you have to find a way for both the corporation and these various what is called parastatal. These agencies which are not under the corporation are called parastatals. You have to find a way for them to work. We felt that the innovative way to make them work is the Greater Bangalore Authority. And hence we suggested that layer of the Greater Bangalore Authority, which has all the stakeholders. It has the corporation, the mayor, the corporation commissioners, it has the parastatals, it has the elected reps in terms of the MLAs. So all the stakeholders concerned with the city are there. And fundamentally, we set out a certain set of functions. Many of them have been embraced by the bill that has got passed. We said an important function for them to do is planning, and they should be the local planning authority for this GBA area. We said that they should coordinate across the multiple municipal corporation. They must integrate the activities of the corporation and the activities of the parastatal. And all of these are there in the revised bill in terms of the functions. We also said they will be involved in economic development and job creation, which is a new kind of thinking that is also there in the updated bill. So what is it that we have suggested which is not there in the GBA bill is just one or two items which are really nuances of what is not there. In our imagination, the Greater Bangalore Authority was more coordination, integration, etc. They would not take up any major intercorporation works, the stormwater drain or the major arterial roads. They would be done by existing agencies or by a special purpose vehicle, which would be set up to do that. But the way the bill is passed right now, it is possible that the GBA might take up works which goes across corporation. They will not touch anything which is within the corporation. The corporation has full rights within whatever it does. But what cuts across corporation boundaries, example, stormwater drain or a major arterial road, there might be a role for the GBA to play, but it would be in conjunction with the concerned corporations through which these projects are going and not independent of them. And they have a say because they are there in the executive committee and in the larger platform that decides that. The other change really is that we had a stronger role for the Financial Advisory Committee, while currently the role for the Financial Advisory Committee is a lot more diluted, because we believed that because the state government will be giving grants to the various corporations, and some of the corporation, it will be to fund their revenue deficit. A revenue deficit means the income of the corporation is less than the expenditure of the corporation, and therefore you have a deficit. You basically have two types of requirements or accounts in a corporation. You have what is called a revenue account, which is day-to-day operation of staff and maintenance, etc., versus the costs associated with it, which is a revenue account. And the other one is a capital account, which is in new infrastructure being created. Now, when we create multiple corporations, it is possible that one of the corporations or two of the corporations, there's a revenue deficit of income being less than expenditure. In such cases, the state money grant will be used partly to bridge the deficit, but the Finance Advisory Committee, in our imagination, will go to the corporation which is being funded with for the deficit and show them how they can increase their income and reduce their expenditure, because the final goal is to have them becoming sustainable. So the final goal is to have them become sustainable. So the finance advisory had that particular role. The second thing is in terms of allocation of capital expenditure from the state grant. The outer areas need more infrastructure. The inner areas have better infrastructure built over the years. So you obviously have to balance who gets how much, which was supposed to be the role of the Finance Advisory Council. So, Akshata, broadly, this is the difference between what we had suggested and what has got passed. I would like to add that while what we had put together, because of our inherent bias and this thing, we believe it was a better set of things. But I'm perfectly fine with the set of things that have got passed finally by the assembly. It is at least a start in this direction of making Bengaluru better. So one at the end of the day is at peace with what is passed, while one dil mange more, you wish it could have been more, but we can live with this.
But it's a starting point,
Akshata?
at least. Yeah.
Yes.
Also, coming to the main part about funds, as you had mentioned that in the draft bill that you had submitted, there was a funding was set up. There was a clear way that how the funds would be handled, but now there is no clarity about what it's going to be. And this is one of the major criticisms, because it happens that, like you correctly mentioned, that if an old Bengaluru area, like if it, let's say about Rajachinagar or Malleshwaram, that are already well organized, the needs are completely different, and the fund is going to, the revenue is comparatively lesser as compared to, let's say, Mahadevapura, Whitefield, the IT areas of Bangalore.
Right.
And that's also one of the
Right.
major problems that has been pointed out. So for now, the citizens, how is it going to be? This fund allocation along with the decentralization process, because the GB as a three-tier layer sounds very good in terms of in paper, but as it by the time it comes to the executive part of it, the decentralization is not going to happen, or people have that fear that it might not happen as well as put on the paper. And looking especially at the
Right.
funds part, do you think that this will truly benefit the citizens of the city?
Without a doubt. So let me walk you through this thing. I spoke earlier about revenue deficit and the need for capital expenditure. Now, let's take a case where, I mean, just for argument's sake, I do not know the number of corporations that finally the government will decide.
Yeah.
But let us say, for argument's sake, it is 5 corporations. And let us say that 2 of the corporations are relatively poor compared to the other 3 corporations. So you have a revenue deficit where their expenditure to give citizen services in those 2 corporations is greater then the property tax revenue, advertising tax revenue, whatever. Here, I'd like to just step aside and say, what are the owned revenues of a corporation? There are basically three broad things that are owned revenue, which nobody can touch. The GBA cannot touch, the state cannot touch, nobody can touch. The Central Finance Commission decides how much to give to a particular corporation. It's from the central kitty. It will go directly to the corporation and nobody can touch it. The State Finance Commission will also decide what will go to each corporation with their formula. That money will go to each corporation and no one can touch it. The third aspect of money that no one can touch is all the taxation powers given by the state to the corporation. Example, property tax. Another example, advertising and hoarding tax. Those taxes belong to the corporation and nobody can touch it. So you can't take it from one corporation and give it to another corporation. So these three are ring-fenced, if I can call it that nobody can touch. Now there's a shortage in two corporations. Now, if you look at historically state government grants to the one BBMP, normally it is of the order of about 5,000 crores. This year's budget has actually allocated 7,000 crores. So now what will happen is the money that is coming as a grant, it will pass to the various corporations through the GBA and the Finance Advisory Council. It will say, let's break this 7,000 crore grant into what is required to address a revenue deficit. It could be 500 crores. And 6,500 crores is available for capital expansion and new projects. Or it could be 1,000 crores for fixing a revenue deficit and 6,000 crores for the capital projects. So first, the revenue deficit will get fixed so that everybody has, nobody is out of pocket. So if there's a corporation where income is greater than expenditure, they will not get anything into the revenue deficit because they don't have a deficit. Only the ones who have got a deficit will get it. Then now comes to the capital expenditure. So there again, there will be an assessment made. Which are the kind of capital projects that are priority and which one, now, for example, historically, the 110 villages are yet to get, some of them are yet to get underground drainage, water, etc. So you might decide, I will set aside so many crores for getting water and drainage into that, and I'll put that money there. I might say the stormwater drain is super critical to avoid flooding. Okay. And this will be in conjunction with the corporation participating, saying these are the areas which are at flooding risk.
The
Then a
problem of
certain
the
X number
locality.
of crores, depending on the locality, vulnerability, and low-lying areas will need the money. The low-lying area, which corporation it exists in, I don't know. But they may then decide it is important that Bangalore should not flood. So let us spend some capital expenditure on anti-flooding measures. Let's identify areas which are low-lying and let's allocate a certain amount of money to stop flooding. So like this, decisions will be really taken on where will the deployment go of the state government grants. So in the process, one is a requirement because there's a deficit on the revenue account. The other one is an infrastructure need of the city. And obviously there are competing needs. You'll have to say that project will have to wait for one more year to taken up. This is a bigger priority right now. But this happens in a household. It happens in a company. It will also happen in the context of this thing. And clearly funding will go for those areas which have the maximum gains. And particularly, I believe that the funding should go more for vulnerable areas. It could be vulnerable in terms of flooding. It could be vulnerable in terms of health. It could be vulnerable in terms of waste management kind of thing. So you will decide, and there will be a basis to decide this.
But again, the problem here now that has been pointed out is because the chief minister is going to be the head, the ministers have a lot of power in this as compared to the citizens or the bureaucratic process, basically. One of the fears that even the opposition BJP had pointed out that the funds could go to the parties that are governed by the state, the winning party, and that changes again regarding the fund. And the whole idea about solving the problems or the fund allocation is that the area fight happens, inter-corporation fight might happen, and because the chief minister is going to be so busy, the ministers are going to handle their own things. The bureaucratic process might not happen. That's one of the major fears. So, will that happen?
So it's a valid concern. I'm not saying it's not. But let me tell you, it is no difference in the current corporation. Let's say we had a mayor and a corporation elected. And let's say there was a ruling party in the BBMP. Then the wards that belong to the opposition party, understandably, by the same logic, will get less money.
Yeah.
Because the ruling party in the BBMP is controlling it. So conceptually, your idea doesn't change because it is a GBA with the chief minister. I'm coming to the chief minister part, or a BBMP with the ruling party who might starve some of the wards which voted for the opposition could well happen. Therefore, to say that this is a problem that is coming up because of the GBA structure is erroneous. It can even happen in a single corporation structure. So that is the first point I'd like. The second point I'd like to make is we need to understand why the CM is there in the GBA before I go to answer your question, why I don't think it will happen. The reason the CM is there is, if you see our report, we have actually said in 5 to 10 years, we would like to transition to a mayor who is the head of the GBA. That's our report. But we realize that there is a transition phase required. Now, here is the problem, and you tell me how to solve it, Akshata. The problem is over decades, I'm not talking about 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, successive state governments have removed municipal functions. Water and supply, BBMP or BMP is useless, set up the BWSSB. These guys can't do roads, get BDA to do the outer ring road. These guys cannot handle electricity, set up BESCOM to handle electricity. So over successive time period, we have hollowed out the corporation by setting up what are independent fiefdoms and agencies, normally called parastatals, which means they are silos reportable to God knows whom, but definitely not reporting to the elected reps in the corporation. That much is clear, that they don't report to the elected reps in the corporation. They don't report
And that's
to the
why the
mayor or the
accountability
corporation.
problem is happening in Bangalore right
So
now.
it is something that has got created.
Yeah.
Now, who broke this? The state government broke it. Now, who needs to fix it? The state government needs to fix it. You break it, you fix it. You can't break it. I can't break a vase and say, Akshata, now it is your responsibility to fix it. I broke it, I have to fix it. Like you have in a vase shop, they say, if it's broken, consider it sold. Same system. So if you see the thing, you may say, why not the Bangalore Development Minister? The reality is the Transport Minister is outside the Bangalore development area. It is an independent individual. The energy is a different person outside the Bangalore development. The police, which is the home, is outside. Who is the only person to whom they will listen? All these people. It is unfortunately only the chief minister, because all the portfolios finally go out there. So the city activity is a multi-ministerial portfolio activity. Whether you like it or not, that is the reality. In an ideal world, you can say all this should never have happened. It should have been all BBMP. But it is possible that today's citizens, if you give them a choice, I will roll back all the activities back to the corporation. Is that better for you or the current one? They might well choose the current one, saying, I don't fully believe that the corporation can do the entire city activity. This is the reality. And therefore, the only person, and it is transition in our head and in our report also, that you broke it, you are the CM who controls all this at this point of time. Previous CMs have broken it, fix it. And that is why the person is sitting there. Now, to say that the GBA is fully controlled by them is very erroneous, because the GBA as a platform and the way they have structured it right now also, the mayors of the various corporations are there, the parastatal heads are there. the commissioners are there, all the MLAs of the city are there, and that is multi-party. And it is quite possible that the city MLAs may be more from the opposition than from the ruling party, which might be ruling the state, which is currently the case. In terms of, you see the ruling party, their MLAs in Bangalore are fewer than the opposition parties. So when you have enough checks and balances of all these people on the platform, how is it conceivable that it is going to be run away by the chief minister and the deputy chief minister? I believe that there is enough checks and balances with so many people on the platform that it is difficult to hijack it, except in the interest of what is good for Bangalore city. If anything, I expect that you might find more consensus that this is good for the city, and everybody signs off saying, let's do this. In fact, you could potentially see that while they disagree ideologically elsewhere, they disagree and call each other names and fight politically elsewhere, when it comes to saying what is good for Bangalore to create jobs, to bring investments, to make the city better, it is quite conceivable. Everybody says, this is the right thing to do. So I would rather see the positive possibilities here rather than to say that this is going to be a capture by the ruling party.
So you do believe that the
At the state level.
ministers, MLAs, everybody part of the GBA who will be in the future, they will work, it will all eventually work in the benefit of Bangalore, despite the other concerns that they might have. It will eventually benefit the citizens because of the functioning
Yes.
and the rules of how it's supposed to happen.
Exactly. So that's the point I'm making. So I'm actually countering the point you're making or others are making on the ground, that it is at this point of time an unfounded fear. But the question, there's a larger question. If you really look at what people are saying about the GBA, people are seeing the GBA as an extension of the state.
Yeah.
This is not how the committee sees it. The committee sees the GBA as an innovative, necessary platform to plan, coordinate, integrate, etc. We see it as a necessary platform. We have to make the CM the head of it because of the legacy problems and the way the parastatals are structured. We are constrained to make the CM the head at this point of time. We are hoping there'll be a future date where there will be a truly city government where a mayor can be the head of the GBA and it doesn't have to be the CM.
But
So
it's
we
again
are
the
seeing this more as
starting
a
point that you
transition
had.
mechanism.
Yeah.
Yeah, starting. We have to start somewhere. If today you straight away say that there is a mayor who, let's say for argument's sake, a directly elected mayor, we thought of it, that we'll have a directly elected mayor. The directly elected mayor voted by 14 million people in Bangalore, at least 11 million adults. At the end of the day, will have more political power than anybody in the assembly because all of them have got elected in constituencies with far less people voting. We don't have a tradition of directly elected mayor. We don't have it in the country.
Not yet. Yeah.
And to suddenly bring that, and you bring it, what is the guarantee that the parastatals and all these people will listen to that person when they are controlled by they are effectively arms of the state? So that's why I go back to my thesis. You broke it, you fix it, and then move out of the way.
Also, there's been one more thing, that it's the GBA or the Greater Bengaluru Governance Bill in general is the violation of 74th Amendment. Like we are talking about the present one that has been passed. That's one of the major criticism brought out by opposition and even the civilian citizens of Bangalore. Everybody has been talking about it. Earlier, you hadn't, in the first one that we had written, you had defended it clearly in the Citizen Matters article where you had explained that how it is not a violation of 74th Amendment. But what would you say about now, the present bill that's being passed?
So Akshita, I have one follow-up question before I come with my response. Tell me, when people say it is unconstitutional or violative of 74th, etc., what is the data point they have to say it violates the 74th? Have you heard any hard data point? Now, for example, the first bill that was tabled in the assembly, they were pulling the property tax and redistributing it. That is clearly violative. It has been removed. The pooling of this thing and redistributing has been removed. The GBA appointing 4 people to the ward committee, the GBA appointing 4 people to the ward committee uh, is violative of it, because the GBA has no role to play in the ward committee, because the ward committee is self-contained within the corporation. They have removed it. So there were clearly 2 items in the bill that were violative of the 74th. I accept that. But they are not there in the final bill. According to me, here's how I would deconstruct it. The corporation and ward, as I explained earlier, is exactly the BBMP 2020 bill that has been there for 5 years. Nobody has challenged the unconstitutionality of the BBMP 2020 bill. It is considered constitutional. Okay. So now the only thing that can be unconstitutional is the GBA layer, saying that the GBA layer is unconstitutional. I want to know what part of the GBA bill, what the GBA is doing as this integration, coordination, etc. I would like to ask which part of this bill is, or which section of the GBA construct is unconstitutional. Now, if you take the view the GBA has no business to be there, that's your personal view. We have to talk in the context of law, in the context of the 74th, in terms of thing. Now, just because the 74th does not see the GBA layer, does not mean that the 74th does not allow a GBA layer. I mean, I'm putting just because something is not explicitly stated that the 74 does not say you cannot have a GBA layer. It does not. It says, I will go ahead and coordinate multiple municipalities and I will coordinate panchayats and all that stuff, which is fine, which is a 74th. But nowhere there is it saying that you cannot have a body like the GBA. Now, if you cannot have a body like the GBA, how do you have a body like the BWSSB, which does a municipal function of water and sewerage? If you cannot have a body like the GBA, how are you having a BDA, which is doing roads and various other projects that they are doing? They've all been around. Now, these are also municipal functions as per the Schedule 12th of the Act. They are there in terms of thing. So we already have a precedence of such bodies coexisting along with municipality. If anything, the MPC now becomes, which is the Metropolitan Planning Committee under the 74th Amendment, now becomes relevant with a multiple municipal setup. So I don't see what is violative. I want to go further. I would like to state that the multiple municipal setup is actually more in keeping with the spirit of the 74th, because political decentralization through multiple municipal corporation is far more in keeping with the spirit of the 74th and deepening the intent of the 74th than a single corporation. Because it inherently says multiple, and the closer the elected reps are to the people, the better it is. Why should a Mahadevpura corporator have to come to Hudson Circle spending 3 hours to come for a meeting where Mahadevpura is not discussed, and spend another 3 hours going back after the meeting to go back to Mahadevpura? They are better off sitting in Mahadevpura area and dealing with the concerns of the Mahadevpura residents, who can then basically, they can address that. So our model of multiple municipal corporation is strong. I was mentioning that the multiple municipal corporation is actually a decentralization idea with more decentralization closer to the people, which is in the spirit of the 74th Amendment, compared to a zonal kind of arrangement, which is administrative decentralization. Political decentralization is definitely better than administrative decentralization that is achieved in this bill. Further, I just want to mention a point that when people say that they are the custodians of the 74th, they are the custodians of MPC, and some of us really have no respect for it, it is incorrect. In fact, our provision in the corporation and ward section of the bill is distinctively much stronger on citizen participation than anything that we have seen before. But hardly anyone from the civil society groups came forward and said, why can't we implement the committee's recommendations here, which is closer to what the 74th wanted than what the BBMP 2020 Act is. But nobody batted for it, and consequently, you have the BBMP 2020 Act as the one before us. That's as far as this thing is concerned. So then it boils down to GBA, which I tried to tell you is already. I mean, I want to know what part of there were elements in the earlier version of the bill table which has been removed. So I do not see what part of it is against the 74th. If it is going to help make for a better city in terms of, and one more point I just want to mention here is, the 74th and the Associated Metropolitan Planning Committee, and I'm sure you'll have a question related to that. At the end of the day, the function and the focus is on planning, and the MPC is not a planning authority. In fact, the language is very clear that it will basically create a draft development plan based on the plans of the municipalities and all the entities below it in its jurisdiction. It will put together the draft development plan based on other plans which the local areas have developed. So nowhere does the MPC being seen as the planning authority, which is the impression being given. The impression being given is the MPC is the final word. Just implement the MPC and everything will be okay. I feel it's an oversimplification, and it is a dangerous way to play this. It is an important thing because it's a constitutional amendment. I am with that. But the reality is, in 30 years since it has been passed, barring a very limited trial in West Bengal, the MPC does not exist anywhere, anywhere effectively in the country. And we are making it look that the MPC is the ultimate thing that has come from on top, and we just have to implement. No, you can do a plan, even assuming you put a draft development plan. What use is that plan if it is violated every day on the ground? What use is a plan if it cannot be managed in day-to-day implementation on the ground of the various elements of the plan? None of that is really there in that particular thing. It just says that you will do this draft development plan and put it out there. There is a whole lot of life to be led on a 24/7 basis. Nobody is denying that the 74th Amendment and the MPC are important requirements constitutionally. And this bill provides for it. There will be an MPC. The MPC will do the draft development plan. It will synthesize all the thing. If anything, the MPC can be the custodian that when the GBA gives the local plan for the area, because they are replacing the BDA as the local planning authority, the MPC can ask, saying, where are the individual plans of the X number of corporations? They can actually be the checks and balances to say, I don't want to just deal with the GBA plan. I want to see proof that these plans have come from the individual corporations. In the last 25 years, while the MPC and the 74th envisage corporations to build their plans, the reality on the ground is the BDA was doing the master plan.
Yeah.
So we are sitting with the BDA having done the master plan. Now you have a system in a multiple municipal corporation where the MPC can turn around and say, I would like to see the individual plans and make up my own mind on the draft development plan. So if anything, we are strengthening the 74th and the MPC and not diluting it.
But even before, there are a lot of maybes that might happen in terms of the whole bill at this point of time. But one of the things that a lot of people have asked is that the BBMP elections have not been held. And one of the criticism is that even before we have a new law, why not work with the existing law? Why not make it better? Like, we have a BBMP, elections are pending, and that's been an ask for a long time. And if we are working with the BBMP 2020 Act itself, why not do it efficiently, put it on ground? That's one thing, and that seems to be a very reasonable concern that has to be.
So Akshita, so I will come to that specifically. See, we have had administrators rule for about 4 years during the 2008 period when the BBMP was being created. You had a long tenure of an administrator's rule. We now have a long tenure of an administrator's rule. Now, the question on the elections, I'm all for elections, and in a democracy, elections are important. At this point of time, the position on the ground is you have the will of the legislature reflected by the Greater Bangalore Governance Bill. I mean, it is awaiting governor's assent, but the will of the legislature is known. The state government has given a commitment to the Supreme Court that they are working on it because Bangalore has many challenges. The old model of just holding another election is going to be counterproductive. And therefore, we would like to do this. They have given a commitment that once the bill is passed and the assent is given, I think they've given a commitment that within a 3 to 4 month period, they will do the delimitation, the reservation, and all those things and be ready for the election. And this is not an ordinary commitment, it's a commitment given to the Supreme Court. So this is basically what they have done. So the point I'm therefore asking is, you have two options. You can say that for the sake of elections, because elections is the most important thing, chuck everything out, do the BBMP 2020, which is just a corporation. The parastatal, all these mess continues as it continues today. And you say, at least we had elections. You can have the joy that at least you had elections. Is that road preferable? Or you do a structural fix, which is what the three-tier thing is trying to do through the GBA, corporation and ward system. Do a structural fix and then do deep decentralization through multiple corporation and then hold the elections. The point I'm trying to say is I am also for elections. I would love to go and vote for a corporator in my ward. I would love to do it. But I would love to make sure that my vote makes a difference. My submission is a vote under the 2020 Act is a worthless vote because it is going to make things remain in status quo and get worse. A vote for a corporator under the new setup, I'm not saying it has a 100% chance of success, but there is a small sliver of hope that that could potentially work.
So we are working on hope at this point of time that it might.
Without a doubt, what else do we have except hope? I have worked in this place for 25 years, from the BATF days to now. And the only thing that gets me up every morning to try and do something is hope. Trust me, there are 99 reasons out of 100 which says, chuck it. There is no hope. Let's forget it. I am an example of somebody who has still got up in the morning and said, let me try one more time to make a change or try to do something which moves the needle some millimeter. We are not even talking about inches and yards, which is some millimeter movement in the right direction. That is what I believe the GBG bill is about. I believe that there are misconceptions in the marketplace, which might be because of lack of enough information about what is happening. Maybe it is guided by a certain fear of what could happen. It could be guided by things that you believe that the CM and all these people have no business to be here. There could be various reasons why these concerns exist out there. But my point really is the option, which is to go back to status quo and the 2020 bill and holding the elections under that, is a lot worse than what is on the table. That's really my submission. If the courts rule that it is illegal, obviously everybody has to go back to the drawing board and hear the court and respond to it. So if people believe it is illegal, let them work to prove the illegality, and obviously subsequent steps will kick in post proving the illegality or the unconstitutional nature of this. But if it is not, can we be positive and say, let's give it a shot? This has a better chance. You know, I want to just paint some imaginations of things that can happen. We have 3 or 5 corporations, whatever. Suddenly somebody sees, I see my neighboring corporation doing some things better than my corporation. I will put pressure on my corporation saying, just look across. They are doing this so well. Why are we doing this so badly? There will be a cooperation come competitive pressure of each becoming better. If I am a corporation which belongs, and I've lost a certain corporation election, the election corporation that I have won, I will say I will prove through my performance in this corporation that next time around the corporation that did not vote for me would prefer me because of my record in this corporation. I see the possibilities as being immense of what are changes are possible. You take waste management. We know that the answer lies in segregation and decentralized handling. We see this in other countries. One corporation can say, I will set up fantastic waste processing centers as a revenue item for my corporation. Another corporation will say, I'm ready to pay the cost and ship it across. New models have a chance of evolving. None of them have a chance in the status quo model of one large BBMP, parastatals floating around on their own trip, and this kind of thing. There is no chance of any innovation, new ideas, and the like
I
emerging.
think there is
There is a
a
ghost of a chance in
consensus
this.
on that the existing system is a problem. That I think everybody along the lines has agreed that we do need something new for to solve the basic problems of the city that every citizen is facing right now. But even coming to the corporations, there's one more thing that has been being brought up is that the representation of non-Kannada will be there, and the people of Karnataka might not get the equal representation here because of the demographics. It might change. What about that?
Yeah. See, it's a valid concern. I mean, I've seen it in the press also about you could have a non-Kannadiga mayor or something. But just it's on record that the last mayor of Bangalore was not a Kannadiga. Okay, you can check the records. Mr. Gautam Kumar was not a Kannadiga. So, I mean, these are political positioning points. But that said, I am sensitive to the language and identity issue. And therefore, any construct, and there I feel we are prejudging. It's not that the government is also insensitive to this making the corporation. So I would withhold judgment on that till the corporations are formed and you take a view on it. The second thing I would like to say, I mean, now, for example, speaking for myself, this is something that I have felt deeply. Yes, I am, for example, an example of a non-Kannadiga. Not that I have any interest in politics. But if you brand me as a non-Kannadiga and therefore I'm a non-person in the city, it is also not fair to me. I personally think that the yardstick needs to change to who is a Bangalorean. A Bangalorean is somebody who basically proves themselves. I mean, you make the effort to learn the local language, the local culture. You try to assimilate yourself into the system. You try to contribute and make the city a better place. You follow the rules of the place. These, to my mind, are the characteristics of a Bangalorean. And I feel that that should be the yardstick going forward. I do respect that the linguistic thing is an important issue in terms of it is an important issue. But Karnataka will remain Karnataka. Just because one corporation by chance does not have that, they have no reason to apply for union territory status, as I've read somewhere. It is the most ridiculous argument I have ever read. That, I mean, I mean, we have had far greater problems in an area like Belgaum, which is a border state with Maharashtra. And Belgaum has continued to be part of Karnataka in terms of this thing. So, therefore, to say that just because the character changed, because one mayor may not be a Kannadiga, but that said, we have to be sensitive to these needs. And it is an important point when you are carving out the various corporations and the like in terms of this thing. So that is really the, in terms of, you know, how I see it.
So being sensitive to the language, but it won't necessarily mean that they won't do welfare to the city in general. Like there will be welfare even if
Yes.
it's a non-Kannadiga person mayor
Yes.
representing.
Yes. But you
Last,
need to be sensitive. I mean, we need to make efforts as non-Kannadigas to integrate in
yeah,
the local
the
society. We need to make
culture of
efforts.
the
I have a
citizen.
problem. I understand Kannada. I have a problem speaking, but it's not for lack of trying. I make the effort.
That makes sense. Also, lastly, now looking as a citizen of Bangalore, right now we have a lot of problems, be it traffic, water, waste management. Everything seems to be a bit chaotic, and like it's rightly pointed out, that the blame is always put on some other authority. Like if we start looking at it, we don't have anybody to hold accountable. If, let's say, this bill is passed by in the future, as a resident, will I have better roads, better traffic management, transportation, and integration with the whole system, like you have tried explaining? And will I be able to hold somebody accountable? Will this bill allow citizens to do that?
The answer is yes. I'll tell you why. Because the current system is failing spectacularly on a day-to-day basis. So, as you said, everybody agrees that is not the answer. In the new system with multiple corporations, with the elected reps being closer to the people they serve, and individual corporations being visible to the other neighboring corporations as to how they are doing it versus how we are doing it, etc., it will actually create a virtuous cycle where more solutions will actually arise, more innovation will flourish. Somebody will find a better way to do pothole-free roads and it'll be copied by the others. Somebody will find a better way to do segregation at source and push for it and find that that part of the corporation is a lot cleaner. So I see this as setting in place a more virtuous cycle as far as improvements go, because there are more people trying to apply their mind. How do I fix the problem? Let's say there are five corporations. There are five corporations trying to figure out how to fix the same problem. Today, we just have one corporation trying to figure out how to fix that problem. That itself, as Ashwin Mahesh says, you increase the number of problem solvers who are trying to fix a problem. When it comes to accountability, I believe that the multiple corporation has greater accountability. I of course believe that the cabinet system in the corporation would have been better than the standing committee. But even the act of multiple corporation and at the GBA level, the CM and the DCM will be responsible for integrated and coordinated outcomes. If the different agencies are working at cross purposes, they will be accountable. If the major intercity kind of works are getting delayed or not happening, the responsibility lies with the GBA, which is responsible to make it happen. If my local street waste is not picked up, my street lights don't work, the local government is actually. So there will be a greater mapping of who is accountable if this part is not working, and who is accountable if the larger regional kind of story is not working. So I think it will be far better than today, where we don't know who is in charge of the city, who is going to sleep saying, this is my city to fix.
In short, we would have a person whom we can question if things are not happening in the street level also, if the basic things are not going on.
Yes, you'll have both. You'll have the corporator, you'll have your mayor, and you'll have the GBA people. You will have different entities, but you pull different people up for different things. So, for example, if your stormwater drain is not yet done and it's still behind schedule, the GBA will be answerable for it because it's a citywide infrastructure project. So they'll have to figure out what is their response to why is the stormwater drain. So journalists will have a chance to trust their mic to different people depending on what is the nature of the problem that they are seeking an answer for.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.